Hi guys, in this week's video I randomly get a lift in an American 1944 World War II Jeep.
I'll stop here, yeah?
Yeah, go on then, pop it out there. I'll drive it. And now the weather's getting better, finally get into the garden to sort the grass out. We also go behind the scenes at the studio for my other channel and watch a studio build from one of my other videos. I've now managed to record audio of my flying lessons, so for the first time ever you can actually hear Jeremy, my flying instructor, speak.
Are you aiming for the numbers now? Yeah. It's a mile off.
Plus, I've decided to build a pergola over the top of the patio at the end of the garden, somewhere for Big G to go and chill out of the sun on those hot days, and I want to do some steam bending to make some special bits of wood to go on top of there as well. But before we do that, it's off to the local swimming pool to follow Emily as she swims 5 kilometres raising money for cancer research. Emily Bumhead has got a bit of history with swimming. She is effectively half fish and used to go to swimming club every Saturday morning at about 6 o'clock in the morning, which she tells me. First thing you'll notice, and that will guide you from any part of Kiev to this fantastic museum, is the Motherland Monument. Standing 62 metres high and on top of the Great Patriotic War Museum, the Rodina Mat, which is the local name, was built in remembrance of 28 million Soviet dead during World War II. She's massive, guys, and her sword alone is 16 metres long and weighs 9 tonnes. I've got to say, guys, I'm so proud of the drone footage I've got here, so let's just have a little fly around and enjoy the weather and this fantastic monument. If you look closely at the shield, you'll be able to see the viewing area that I was going to go up, but unfortunately we had to wait half an hour, and then I saw people getting strapped up in harnesses, and then I remembered that I was in Ukraine, and then I thought, actually, I think I'll just give that one a miss. It's sometimes hard to comprehend the scale and human tragedy that the war in the East entailed, and it's often forgotten by those in the West. And if you're looking for a monument commemorating the dead of the motherland, then there's nothing more striking than the Rodina Mat. The museum itself was absolutely fascinating and set over 3 floors. The first floor covered the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Disastrous nuclear power plant accident in history, both in terms of cost and casualties. The struggle, later known as the Battle for Chernobyl, to stop there being a greater catastrophe, together with the later decontamination efforts for the surroundings, ultimately involved 500,000 workers and cost an estimated 18 billion rubles, and was thought to have been one of the catalysts for the eventual downfall of the Soviet Union. And today, almost 32 years to the day from the accident, we were going to visit Chernobyl power plant and the infamous town of Pripyat that was abandoned nearby. So then we're on the bus, we've got Dane's here, Nod's just over there. So we have, let's take this off, a Geiger counter to take with us to this Chernobyl tour. This measures, obviously, radiation pretty much. We all kind of kept our thoughts to ourselves, knowing that we were visiting a place that hasn't really been accepting tourists for very long, and also is still classified as uninhabitable by human beings. In 1986, soon after the disaster, a 30-kilometre exclusion zone was enforced around Chernobyl power plant. Within this, another 10-kilometre exclusion zone was also enforced. We would have to pass through these exclusion zones and also have our radioactive levels tested when we left. We had to jump out and line up in front of the bus and have our passports checked, and it was also an opportunity for me to take a few photos looking down a very long straight road that we just come up, and also some military armour that was there. The Chernobyl exclusion zone, otherwise known as the zone of alienation, is largely uninhabited, except for about 300 residents that have refused to leave. The area has largely reverted to forest and has been overrun by wildlife because of a lack of competition with humans for space and resources. Even today, radiation levels are so high that the workers responsible for rebuilding the sarcophagus are only allowed to work 5 hours a day for 1 month before taking 15 days of rest. Ukrainian officials estimated the area would not be safe for human life again for another 20,000 years. Oh, yeah, so that's... What's this place called again? After taking a few snaps of us standing out on the isolated roads, we got back on the bus and entered the actual town of Chernobyl itself, which used to house all the workers that lived there. Resplendent with statues of Lenin and even the old Communist Party offices, I was already getting a feeling that this was going to be a really interesting day. During the evacuation after the disaster, most people were kind of kept in the dark as to what had happened, and they told they would be back in about 3 or 4 days and to leave everything where it was. That's why places like this abandoned nursery or orphanage are just like they are, completely left in a time warp from 1986. So this used to be the nursery. That's crazy. We left the nursery and hopped back on the bus, and this was the first time that we saw the new safe confinement around Chernobyl power plant itself. It was absolutely massive and just majestically came into view around the corner, completely grabbed your attention as you went over there.
The amusement park of Pripyat. Yet another proof of how this place was a special place for special people, a unique town for the chosen, like I said before. I don't know.
So, living life to the max in Duxford at the moment with Mum and Dad. It's Dad's birthday, it was a few days ago, and this is his present. Came a bit late, but there we go. So yeah, we're here now. Bumheads is here as well. Oh yeah, and that's my mum in slow-mo. Yeah, so we're gonna have a walk around. What's going on today is the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings that happened in 1944, June 6th. But the night before those landings, there were huge parachute drops all over Normandy. And what they're doing today is recreating those parachute drops. So, you know, there's loads of kids here, loads of different types of people who are going to be able to see and learn from that. Paratroopers were one of the elite forces in the theatre of war in World War II. Here are some from the 101st American Airborne Division the day before they jumped into D-Day, meeting General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Forces. Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Times with James. Today we are off to Granada in Spain. We're going to visit the ancient Alhambra Palace and beautiful gardens within. We're also going to go up to Sierra Nevada mountains, one of the few places in Europe where you can ski in the morning and then sunbathe with an Aperol in the afternoon. We're going to stop at a random dam and get some beautiful drone footage and just eat and drink lovely food and walk around the beautiful old city. So pop along with us guys, please hit that subscribe button. This should be a lovely, relaxing video. So let's get on with it guys, kick your feet up and let's go to Spain. It's crazy, isn't it? The people effectively got in here, took back control of their own information. They weren't going to be surveilled on anymore, they were fed up with it. They did not want a faceless power based in these offices to have information on them that had been gathered by, you know, their friends informing on them, phone wiretaps, photographs, things like that being taken. And so they came here in 1990 to make sure they got that back. So we've seen how the GDR came about, we've seen what the SED party was, we've also briefly looked over the Stasi, the amount of informants they had, how people were spied on, and also see how people's lives were decomposed in front of their eyes with this Zersetzung or decomposition procedure. Now we're going to have a brief look at where you might go if you were actually arrested by the Stasi, how that would happen and where you'd be taken. If you were taken off the street, you would be put in one of the Stasi's secret prison vans. These were often disguised as bakers' vans or florists' vans and could have up to 6 miniature cells in them. Not being able to see outside, you'd then often be driven around and around for 3 to 4 hours hours, by which time you'd be so disorientated you wouldn't even know if you were in the same city, at a Baltic port, or even in another country. For some, their final destination would be Hohenschönhausen prison in Berlin. Hohenschönhausen was the headquarters for the 17 Stasi-Remand prisons that were located around East Germany. In May 1945, the red brick building was confiscated by the Soviet occupation forces and transformed into Special Camp No. 3. Prisoners were put to work to construct a system of subterranean bunker-like cells in the basement of the former canteen, known as the U-boat, or submarine. The damp cold cells were equipped with wooden beds and a bucket serving as a lavatory. A light bulb was burning 24 hours a day, so prisoners didn't know what time of day it was. Interrogations were usually held at night in an atmosphere of physical and psychological violence. The living conditions in the camp were lethal. Food was scarce and hygiene impossible, and an increasing number of political enemies of the Soviet occupation forces disappeared in the camp. After the founding of the GDR, the jurisdiction of the prison came under the control of the Stasi. Its main use from then on was to be an administrative centre for the prison complex, and also as a tool for political repression in the GDR. Once inside the prison, and after the usual cavity search and the changeover to prison clothing, inmates were deliberately left for weeks before they were interrogated. Indeed, some say they even looked forward to interrogation, because it was the only human contact they'd get. There were intricate systems in place to make sure that prisoners never accidentally came across any of the other inmates or had any interaction with them whatsoever. For the duration of a prisoner's incarceration, the guards were only allowed to say 3 things to them. Andrei Kokish, our guide, explained.
Because isolation was normally the rule here. They had been isolated.
So the only person they'd speak to would be the guard and their interrogator?
Yeah, the interrogator, because the guard didn't speak to them. They just had 3 orders. Come, go, or face the wall.
Really?
That's everything.
And so presumably it was all just primarily political prisoners?
Only
Yeah.
political.
Yeah.
Everything the Stasi considered political.
During this time, the Stasi would collect scent samples from the prisoners to be used by dogs in the event of an escape, or if in the future the Stasi needed to find the inmate if they'd been released. Once the interrogators were ready, prisoners were called to the interrogation wing. This was when a traffic light system in the ceiling was used in conjunction with special markings on the corridor floor that are still there. So then guys, a couple of weeks ago I said that I was going to start building my pergola, and that was in the video English Summer Mystery, so go back and check that out if you haven't already. I decided this was such a chunky project that it'd probably be a better idea that we had a look at it together. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So join me as I hammer, weld, drill and saw to get my pergola looking a little bit like this. I hope you enjoy it guys. Please hit the subscribe, please hit the like and comment below. Let's get on with the video. Right guys, well, so a couple of weeks ago you saw I was trying to bend that bit of wood. What I've decided to do is I'm actually going to make the sort of main frame of the pergola and then get the wood bent to it. By the way, remember I did that little thing about all my lovely grass? Look at this. How beautiful is that? Doesn't that look gorgeous? So there you go, I think you find that's working. Look as well, the garden's really come out and it's just nice to be out here at the moment. The grass is like a carpet, okay? But look at the ceanothus. Isn't that beautiful? Lots of lovely ceanothus.